Praise the Lord and greetings to all my dear students. I hope you all are doing great. Well, we are done with the recent chapter of working with functions. It's a small chapter. By now you should feel pretty confident with the concept of the chapter of working with functions. But for today's video lesson and for the next, I would like to cover the questions or the probable questions, for the examination from this particular chapter, right? It's one thing to be familiar with the concept of the chapter itself, but then it's another thing to be able to answer a variety of questions which you will find at the end of the chapter, right? So I would like to spend today's video lesson as well as the next video lesson for it'll be a kind of practice for the examination. At times you feel that you're pretty okay with the concept of working with functions, and then there you go, all of a sudden there is a twisted kind of question which all of a sudden pops up in the examination. So I want to avoid any such unpleasant surprises, right? So I have listed like 12 questions, and all these questions are based on the predicting the output or finding the output, and then there are a couple of questions which are based on fixing the error. So for today's video lesson, it'll be something like either predicting the output or to fix the error. And then for the next video lesson, I'll be touching upon the programs, right? So let's look at the first question. Trace the following code and predict output produced by it. So trace means you should be able to write the proper order in which the program gets executed, right? So I'll just number the statement. So you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and then 9, right? So trace means you need to keep track of the order of the execution of the statements, right? So look at this program and then just try to understand the logic behind it. So you have the main part of the program and then a couple of function calls, and then you have the associated function definition, right? So when you run this, the Python interpreter will start with the statement number 1, right? So I'll just write 1 here, and then Python interpreter, once it sees the def keyword, it just checks that the header is following the syntactical rule of the function definition, right? It just makes sure that the function header, the first line of function definition is called function header. So it just checks whether the function header is following the rule or not, and then it will not execute the remaining 2. Because as you know, the function definition is executed only at the time of function call, right? So the statement number 1 will be executed first, and then it ignores the rest, and then again it sees the another function header, and it executes, or it checks. So as a result of which you will have number 4, and then it ignores the statement number 5 and 6 because these 2 are the body of the function, right? And then it starts with the main part of the program. So you have 7, okay? 7 followed by 8, right? And then when it executes statement number 8, it has a function call, right? So this function call will take us to the function definition of calc square. So you have 4 which will be executed again because the value of n, which is 5, will have to be received by x, right? And then statement number 4 will be executed, right? And then again statement number 5, since it has a function call, statement number 5 will be executed, all right? So from here we have a function call. So it takes us to the function definition of power. So which means 1 will be executed, alright? And then you have 2, alright? And then you have 3, okay? So the value of y will replace the value of the function call. Okay, so once the y replaces the function call, the value will be assigned to 5. So which means statement number 5 is again executed. Now this is important, alright? So you have statement number 5 again, and then statement number 6. Okay, statement number 6. So the a value will be returned back to the function call. Okay, so this particular statement of 8 will be executed again, right? So I write here 8. Understood? And then you have another call here, power, right? So from here, so which is a part of statement number 8, right? So from here, it will take us to the statement number 1. So you have statement number 1 will be executed, 2 follows, and then you have 3, right? And then the y value will replace the function call of power. So, you will add up the returned value of Planck square and power, and then the result will be assigned to result. So, which means the statement number 8 is executed again, right? And then finally, statement number 9 will be executed, right? So, in the exam, if you're asked to trace the following code, you need to write the order of the statements based on the order of the execution of the statements, right? So the question is pretty simple, but you need to be careful with regard to the calls and the function definition, right? So I hope you have understood this. Now let's move on to, we need to check the output, right? Okay, so Planck square, the value of n is 5, right? So it goes up, right? It's important to mark the value of the variable, right? So the value of n is 5, x will have 5 here, right? And then you have another function called 5 and 2 will be sent up. So you will have here 5 and then you will have 2, okay? So this is exponentiation operator. So 5 raised to 2 is 25. So 25 will be returned back. It will be returned back and then it will be assigned to 8, right? Okay, I hope I got it right. And then 25 will be replacing, right. Okay, 25 will be replacing the function call, right? So you have here 25. And then power, right? So 3 and 3 will directly be sent up to the parameters of b and p. 3 raised to 3 is 3 times 3 is 9. 9 times 3 times 3 is 27, right? 3 into 3 into 3, 27. So 27 will be assigned to y, and then you will have 27, right? So 27 plus 25, you should get the answer as 52, right? So let's check. I'll just run this program. And then there you go, you have the result as 52, right? So be careful. It's not that difficult, but you have every chance that you may end up with silly mistakes. So if even if you know the logic or how to trace it, but if you mess up with the final output, you cannot ever say like it's close, okay? So 51 is not equal to 52. So that's the end of the story, right? So let's go and check out the next question. Okay, the next question is, just write this. Okay, the next question is, let's read the question properly. That's super important. Consider a function with the following header. So this is the function header, okay? You don't have the function body as such. So this is the function header. Which of the following function calls are correct and incorrect? We have done this already, but just to make you feel a little more confident, I have come up with yet another example. So look at the first function call. Is this valid or invalid, right? So obj1 is being passed based on position, okay? So up here, object is a required or positional argument, remember? So which means since it's required, I'm setting the value of obj1. And then it's okay if I do not send the values for spacing and collapse, right? Because both these spacing and collapse have default values. So this is a valid function call. So in the exam, you should be writing the answers like this. Since object is a required or positional argument, we are not skipping it, we are setting it. However, spacing and collapse, they have default values. Hence, we don't have to send it, right? And then look at this, spacing equals 20. So is this valid or is it invalid? This is invalid because we are not allowed to skip the positional or required. Alright, so this is invalid. And then what do you have to say about this third one? Third one seems alright because obj2 will send the value to the required parameter of object, and then 12 will replace the value of spacing, and then perhaps still has the default value of 1. Okay, and then what about this statement number 4? Statement number 4 is invalid because for a particular parameter you cannot have multiple values. So you are sending obj11 to object based on position. Okay, through the required argument or positional argument, seems alright, but you are sending again obj12 to the object through the keyword argument and the named argument. I'm using the keyword, I'm using the named argument as a way of passing the values, right? So I'm sending two arguments, but for the same parameter. Okay, so this is against one of the rules that needs to be implemented, right? So you cannot have multiple values for the same parameter, right? So this is invalid. And then the fifth one, obj3 goes smoothly to object, and then you don't have to have the value for spacing because spacing has the default values, and 0 will replace the value of 1. So the 5 is a valid call. And then 6, is it a valid call? The answer is no, because you are skipping the required argument, right? And then 7 is again invalid call. The reason is you cannot make the positional argument follow the named argument or the keyword argument, right? So this is, you're sending the value through keyword or named argument, right? And then you have the mode of sending the value based on position or based on required argument, right? So the rule says you cannot follow, you cannot have the positional argument after the keyword or named argument. Okay, so this is again one of the rule, because otherwise when you look at it, it looks very confusing, right? We have said like this is based on position, right? And you are already messing up the order. Okay, you cannot do it. So the rule says the positional or required argument cannot follow the keyword or the named arguments, right? And then finally, 8 is invalid call because 8 is again, it's not invalid. I think it's very much valid. Since you are sending the values from arguments to parameters based on keyword or named arguments, you can mess up the order. Okay, because you are purely using the same mode of sending the values by keyword or named arguments. So the main benefit of sending values through keyword or named arguments is you can have the flexibility and control over the order of sending the values from the function call to the function definition, right? So 8 is very much a valid call. Okay, unlike 7. In 7, the problem here is you have a positional argument, right? And then you have a named argument, right? So in this particular case, it's a combination of two modes. But here it is all about it is all about using the same mode of sending the values, and that is keyword or named arguments, right? Okay, so let's go to the next question. Okay, what will the following code print? Okay, so this should be pretty simple. You have 6, 16, 26. This is the function call, and then x, y, and z will receive the value of 6, 16, and 26 respectively. And then all three numbers will be added. Okay, so you will have how much? 16 plus 6 is 22, 22 plus 26 is 48, right? So look at this. The first output will be 48. Okay, you have the function call, right? But since this particular function is not returning any statement, do you have a return statement? No. If the function doesn't have any return statement, by default it returns a special empty legal value of Python called none, N-O-N-E. It is just a way to signify that there is a missing value in case. So none is a special empty legal value of Python which will be returned if there is no other values which are being returned, right? So even though it doesn't return, but implicitly it returns none value, and the value of A will be none, right? But as of now, this is the first output with a print statement, right? And then again, you have another call. 2, 3, 6 will be assigned to x, y, z respectively. They all will be multiplied. 2 times 3 is 6. 6 times 6 is 36. 36 will be returned. Okay, so the returned value will replace the function call, and the value of b will be how much? It will be 36. Okay, now, as of now, only 48 is printed. Now you are printing the value of a. The value of a is how much? None, right? So it will be printed on the next line, okay? And then on the same line, the value of b, which is 36, will be printed, right? So these three values will be printed on executing this particular code, okay? So we're preparing you for the exam. You cannot be a little rash, or you should not be in any sort of hurry in solving these kind of questions, right? Okay, now let's move on to the next question. Okay, consider a given function headers and identify which of these will cause error and why. Now this time, what have I done? Okay, I need to change this to markup, right? Okay, so these are the function headers. So again, just like I missed out on colon, right? Okay, so just like the function call, you have rules for the function headers. So the question says, which of these function headers will cause error and why, right? So look at the first function header. It has a default value, and then it has a variable without any default value, right? So I hope you remember a very, very important rule with regard to the function definition or a function header having a default values. It says on the right side, you can have default values on the right side of the non-default parameter. Okay, you can have default values for parameters only on the right side of the non-default parameter. Okay, so which means look at this. This is a non-default parameter. It doesn't have a default value, right? It appears on the right. Okay, but the rule says all the default values should be defaulted. The parameters with default values should appear on the right side of the non-default values. Or in other words, all the default values must follow the non-default values, right? So this is one important rule to be followed, right? So like I said, the rule in the function call is you cannot follow, you cannot make the keyword or named arguments before the positional or the required argument, right? So based on that rule, something similar to that. So in a nutshell, this is invalid. Okay, you cannot have a function header like this. The default value should also appear on the right side of non-default value, right? So this is invalid. Again, this looks alright, okay, because you have a default values following the non-default the parameter, but again you have a is equal to 1, right? So b, unless it's on the left side, the function header will be invalid, right? However, 3 should be alright, because you don't have any non-default values. Do you see any non-default values? The answer is no. So you have A, B, C with default values, okay? So this is very much a valid function header. So in order to invoke this, if you want to make a call to the function header number 3, if you call function without any parameters, without any arguments, A, B, C will have the default values. If you send 2 will replace the value of A, B and C will still have the default values, right? So statement, the function header number 3 is very much correct, okay? So likewise, statement number 4 is incorrect, because you have a non-default value parameter on the right side of the parameters with the default values. So you need to be careful with this particular rule. So this is the only rule associated with the function header, okay? So it's if I say it again, the parameters with the default values must and always follow the parameters with non-default values, okay? So here it does follow, okay? Default valued parameter is following this, but the problem is non-default value parameter is following the default value parameter. So this is the rule associated with the function header, right? So let's move on to the next question. Okay, question number 5. What does it say? Okay, following code intends to swap. Swap means interchange the values of 2 variables through a function. Okay, but upon running the code, the output shows that values are swapped inside the switch function, but not in the main program. So when you send 2 values in the function itself, the values are being swapped, but again when you come back in the main part of the program, the values are not interchanged or exchanged, right? So what could be the reason, and suggest a remedy? You need to come up with a solution, right? So let's look at the program and check. Okay, so this is the question, right? So you have x is 5, y is 7, you're printing x is equal to 5, y is equal to 7, and then you call the function of switch, okay, up there, and then you have x, comma, y. So 5 is being received in x, and then 7 is being received in y. You need to be mindful of this. Even though I have 2 variables with the same name, x in the function definition and x in the main part of the program, these 2 variables are totally different from each other. The reason is they have different scope. These variables of x and y have a global scope, right? So these 2 x and y again are all together another 2 variables with the local scope. Remember, you have the global environment or the global namespace inside which you will have the local space. So in the global namespace or the global environment, you have x and y, and then in the global environment, you have the local environment in which again 2 variables with the same name of x and y are created. So even though they share the same name, but they are different, right? So let's see. Okay, what happens here is x is 5, y is 7. They are sent up. So like I said, in this, so say this is the local environment, and this is the global environment, right? So I hope you remember, this is global and this is local. So in global you have x as 5 and y as 7, is it? And then you have x and y in local as well. So you're passing global x value of 5 to local x value of 5. And then you're sending global y of 7 to local y, which will be 7, right? So this statement is important. You know, I hope you have not forgotten it. The value of y is 7, right? So value of y will be 7 and the value of x is 5. The execution takes place like this. First, these two variables values are assessed or figured out, okay, or they are calculated, even though no calculation is such. First, it doesn't take place like this, y is sent to x and then x is sent to y. You know, it doesn't process like this. First, the value of I is known or figured out, which is 7. The value of x is how much? 5. You know, local 5. And then now 7 will be sent to x and 5 will be sent to y. So which means you will have x as 7 and then you will have y as 5. Right? So, and then print x is equal to how much? It will now be 7 and then it will be, value will be equal to 5. Moment the function execution is over, the whole local environment disappears. Okay? Disappears. And then when you come back, when you print the value of x and y, you will still get 5 and 7. So the first question is, what could be the reason? Even though you know they were switched inside the function, the change is not reflected in the main part of the program. So what could be the reason? The reason is you are swapping the values of x and y of the local environment. Okay, not the global environment. Understood? If I just repeat it, you are trying to swap the values of x and y of the local environment, not the global environment. Okay? The moment the function execution is over, when you come back, the local namespace disappears. Okay? And then in the main part of the program, when you check out the value of x and y, understandably you are referring to the global x and the global y, which remain as 5 and 7. How do you fix this? How do you fix this is in the textbook they've said like, if I just run the program first, okay, if I run this, okay, x is equal to 5, y is equal to 7. Inside the switch function, they seem to have swapped, but again when you come out from the function, check the value of x and y, you will still get 5 and 7. In the textbook, you know, they've said like, you know, you need to write here global x and global y. Okay, but when you run the program, they seem to be a serious error. Okay, now even though it looks like, you know, the global keyword will allow us to use the x and y of the global environment or the global namespace. We have done this already, right? But the problem here is when you run this, you get an error, okay? Just run this, and then the error message is the name x is a parameter and global. Okay, so we'll try to understand this, right? So the textbook seems to have made a slight mistake. We'll try to understand this. Name x is a parameter and global. So look at this. X and y are parameters. Remember, the parameters are variables which appear in the function. So can I say that the parameters are the local variables? Okay, so parameters are local variables because parameters are variables which appear in the function definition. Okay, I hope you got this. Now, x and y are clearly local variables, right? Or in other words, parameter. But now, with the execution of that statement, you are trying to say like x and y. These x and y are now being declared also as global. Okay? So when you say global x and y, this particular keyword will not refer to the actual global variables of x and y which appear in the main part of the program, because it will automatically refer to the parameters. Okay, so this particular global keyword will automatically point to these two variables x and y, which are nothing but parameters. So you have a strange case of a message to Python interpreter saying x and y are local. Okay, in the local namespace, you are saying x and y are local variables already with the execution of the function header. But with this, you are saying now in the local environment, x and y, which are the local variables, are also the global variables. Okay, so if I repeat it once again, if I make it very simple, with this, you have x and y in a local namespace. But with the global, you are saying this two x and y, which are local variables, are also global variables, right? So this cannot be, this cannot be a proper or a valid situation. It is like this. In the computer lab itself, I'm saying Tenzin as the monitor of class 12D, okay? And then within the same environment, I've said only within the four walls of computer lab, you be the monitor, okay? From here, as a computer science teacher, can I ever assign him the responsibility of the school captain? No way, because our scope is limited to the four walls of the computer lab, right? So in short, you cannot ever have a variable with the local scope as well as global scope at the same time from the local environment, right? So there's this little confusion. So in order to sort out the confusion, I came up with the reasoning, right? So I hope you got it. So this is the reason why name x is, since x comes first, you get this. X is a parameter local as well as global. So this is an error message, right? So if you really want to fix it, then perhaps you can change this to, right? You can change it to A, okay? And then you can change this to B, and then change this to A, and then change this to B, right? So hopefully, if you run this, originally x is 5, y is 7. Inside the switch function, they are swapped, and then when you come back, 7 of x and 5 of y are now interchanged, right? So now this time you should not have any problem, because global xy means there is no room for confusion. It immediately points to the ones which are actually global variables. Okay, so I hope you got this. So if I cut the whole story short, what could be the reason? Because the reason is x and y are created in the local variables. Any changes applied take place only inside the local namespace. Once you come out, the local namespace disappears. The remedy is you should write global x and y, but an additional change is you should have another variable names instead of x and y. Otherwise, you will come out with an error of x is global and parameter. Okay, now let's move on to next question. Question number 6. Okay. Now this should be pretty simple. Find and write the output of the following code. Okay. So, okay, look at this. This is the function called school2@com. This is a string. String will be received by S. The length of S is assigned to K. So you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. 11 will be assigned to K. And then you have an empty string as the value of N. For I in range. So it will start from 0 till 11. Alright? So the last value of I, the first value of I will be 0, the last value of I is 10. Remember? The upper limit is excluded, right? So just to check now, the value of I, the loop variable starts with 0. S of 0 is S. Is it uppercase? This function will return true if the character is an uppercase. So this function actually works on the basis of the corresponding ASCII codes of the characters. Remember 65 to 90 is the range for uppercase, 97 to 122 is the range for lowercase, right? So it checks small s, s of 0 is small s is uppercase, it's false. It checks this, is it alphabetical character? The answer is yes. Okay, is it alphabetical character? Yes. Then what happens is small s will be converted to uppercase. So you have two closely resembling functions, is upper and upper. Is upper is a question, so it should return either true or false. It's a question. Is it this? Upper means it will do the conversion. It will do the conversion, right? So the small s will be converted to big S, and the big S will be stored in N, right? So N will have big S, and then C. It's over, right? And then okay, if this condition is true, the rest of the condition will be skipped. And then again, the value of I will be 1, and then S of 1, S of 1, S of 2, S of 3, S of 4, S of 5. Okay, S of 5 for the values of I as 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. This condition will be false, but this condition will be true, because all of these are not uppercase characters, rather they all are alphabets. Okay, so which means school will be converted to uppercase, right? Like this. And then 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then when it's 6, okay, S of 6 is 2. So this is false. S of 6 means 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. S of 6 is number 2. Number 2, is it uppercase? No. Is it alphabetical character? No. Then what happens is school will be concatenated with two characters of B and B, right? And then again you have at. Okay, this will be like S of 7, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, right? When S of 7 is at, it's not uppercase, it's not alphabet, so again you will have 2B. Alright, and then finally you have lowercase characters, right? You have lowercase characters for which this will keep producing false, but this will be true. So they all will be changed to C-O-N, right? So your answer should be school, B, and then you have com, all in uppercase, right? So there you go. So this is the correct answer. So these are, if I'm not wrong, the same question has appeared in one of the earlier board papers. So please give due importance, right? So with this, I would like to wind up the first part of the video. Okay, so we still have 4 more questions. Okay, so I'll just end here, and then a little later I'll continue with the second part of the video, right?